Our reading from this morning is from 1 Samuel, the 16th chapter. The Lord said to Samuel, "How long will you grieve over Saul? I have rejected him from being king over Israel. Fill your horn with oil and set out. I will send you to Jesse the Bethlehemite, for I have provided for myself a king among his sons." Samuel said, "How can I go? If Saul hears of it, he will kill me." And the Lord said, "Take a heifer with you and say, 'I have come to sacrifice to the Lord.' Invite Jesse to the sacrifice, and I will show you what you shall do. And you shall anoint for me the one whom I name to you." Samuel did what the Lord commanded and came to Bethlehem. The elders of the city came to meet him trembling and said, "Do you come peaceably?" He said, "Peaceably. I have come to sacrifice the Lord. Sanctify yourselves and come with me to the sacrifice." And he sanctified Jesse and his sons and invited them to the sacrifice. When they came, he looked on Eliab and thought, "Surely his anointed is now before the Lord." But the Lord said to Samuel, "Do not look on his appearance or on the height of his stature, because I have rejected him. For the Lord does not see as mortals see. They look on the outward appearance, but the Lord looks on the heart." Then Jesse called Abinadab and made him pass before Samuel. He said, "Neither has the Lord chosen this one." Then Jesse made Shammah pass by, and he said, "Neither has the Lord chosen this one." Jesse made 7 of his sons pass before Samuel, and Samuel said to Jesse, "The Lord has not chosen any of these." Samuel said to Jesse, "Are all your sons here?" And he said, "There remains yet the youngest, but he is keeping the sheep." And Samuel said to Jesse, "Send him and bring him, for we will not sit down until he comes here." He sent and brought him in. Now he was ruddy and had beautiful eyes and was handsome. The Lord said, "Rise and anoint him, for this is the one." Then Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed him in the presence of his brothers, and the Spirit of the Lord came mightily upon David from that day forward. Samuel then set out and went to Ramah. The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
Our psalm is 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not be in want.
The Lord makes me lie down in green pastures and leads me beside still waters.
You restore my soul, O Lord, and guide me along right pathways for your name's sake.
Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me.
You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, and my cup is runneth over.
Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
Our second reading is from Ephesians, the 5th chapter. Once you were darkness, but now in the light you are light. Walk as children of light, for the fruit of the light is found in all that is good and right and true. Try to find out what is pleasing to the Lord. Take no part in the unfruitful works of darkness, rather expose them. For it is shameful even to mention what such people do secretly. But everything exposed by the light becomes visible. For everything that becomes visible is light. Therefore it says, "Sleeper, awake, rise from the dead, and Christ will shine on you." The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God. And we have a rather lengthy gospel message again. So today I will go ahead and remain seated. As much as I love to test your backs and everything, it's just not worth it. So Jesus says, "I am the light of the world.
Whoever follows me will have the light of life."
The Holy Gospel according to John, the 9th chapter.
Glory to you, O Lord.
As Jesus walked along, he saw a man blind from birth. Now his disciples asked him, "Rabbi, who sinned, the man or his parents, that he was born blind?" Now Jesus answered, "Neither this man nor his parents sinned. He was born blind so that God's works might be revealed in him. We must work the works of him who sent me while it is day. Night is coming when no one can work. As long as I am in the world, I am the light of the world." Now, when he had said this, he spat on the ground and made mud with his saliva and spread the mud on the man's eyes, saying to him, "Go, wash in the pool of Siloam," which means sent. Then he went and washed and came back able to see. The neighbors and those who had seen him before as a beggar began to ask, "Isn't this the man who used to sit and beg?" Some were saying, "It is he." Others were saying, "No, but it's someone like him." And the man kept saying, "I am he." But they kept asking him, "Then how were your eyes opened?" He answered, "The man called Jesus made mud, spread it on my eyes, and said to me, 'Go to Siloam and wash.' Then I went, washed, and received my sight." They said to him, "Where is he?" He said, "I don't know." So they brought to the Pharisees the man who had formerly been blind. Now it was a Sabbath day when Jesus made the mud and opened his eyes. Then the Pharisees also began to ask him how he had received his sight. He said to them, "He put mud on my eyes, then I washed, and now I see." Some of the Pharisees said, "This man is not from God, for he does not observe the Sabbath." Others said, "How can a man who is a sinner perform such signs?" And they were divided. So they said again to the blind man, "What do you say about him? It was your eyes he opened." He said, "Well, must be a prophet. He is a prophet." The Jews didn't believe that he had been blind and had received his sight until they called the parents of the man who had received his sight and asked them, "Is this your son who you say was born blind? How then does he now see?" His parents answered, "We know that this is our son and that he was born blind. But we do not know how it is that now he sees, nor do we know who opened his eyes. Ask him. He is of age. He will speak for himself." His parents said this because they were afraid of these Jews, for the Jews had already agreed that anyone who confessed Jesus to be Messiah would be put out of the synagogue. Therefore his parents said, "He is of age, ask him." So for the second time they called the man who had been blind, and they said to him, "Give glory to God. We know that this man is a sinner." He answered, I don't know if he's a sinner. One thing I do know, that though I was blind, now I see." They said to him, "What did he do to you? How did he open your eyes?" He answered them, "I've told you already, and you wouldn't listen. Why do you want to hear it again? Do you also want to become his disciples?" And they reviled him, saying, "You are his disciple, but we are disciples of Moses. We know that God has spoken to Moses, but as for this man, we don't know where he comes from." The man answered, "Here's an astonishing thing. You do not know where he comes from, yet he opened my eyes. We know that God doesn't listen to sinners, but he does listen to one who worships him and obeys his will. Never since the world began has it been heard that anyone opened the eyes of a person born blind. If this man weren't from God, he could do nothing." They answered him, "You were born entirely in sins, and you are trying to teach us?" And they drove him out. Jesus heard that they had driven him out, and when he found him, he said, "Do you believe in the Son of Man?" He answered, "And who is he, sir? Tell me, so that I may believe in him." Jesus said to him, "You have seen him, and the one speaking with you is he." He said, "Lord, I believe." He worshipped him. Jesus said, "I came into this world for judgment, so that those who do not see may see, and those who do see may become blind." Some of the Pharisees who were with him heard this and said to him, "Surely we are not blind, are we?" Jesus said to them, "If you were blind, you would not have sinned. But now that you say we see, your sin remains." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Christ.
I'm struck, you guys are sitting down because we have lengthy passages last week and this week. This one becomes one of those passages where it tells us, I think, more about power than it does God's glory. It tells us about our human nature, because everyone is trying to figure out, what? How did this happen? What do you mean? Because what happens? The man who has been born blind, who has been healed, instead of celebrating a miracle, we get that backroom mumbling of saying, Seriously? Did this just happen? And how do we deal with it? Whether we are the Pharisees or we are the parents. Should the parents not be rejoicing and being saying, whoa, this is a miracle? But what happens? They are afraid. They're afraid of the powers that be, that their life that they know, even though they have already been judged, correct? Jesus talks about this right away in the passage. The disciples are saying, whose fault is this, him or his parents? Well, if he's born blind, it's got to be the parents, right? Sinners. So they've already been judged, right? Trust you me, they have been judged and they have been probably not trusted, but they're still a part of the community, which says something about the community standards of the day, that is still important, that we are going to lift one another up, even if we don't quite trust those parents, right? And so what happens? They are afraid that whatever they have, instead of rejoicing in this, they are afraid of losing whatever status they have, even though they are already being judged, even though they probably are this close. Well, it makes sense. They're this close to being thrown out anyway, because they obviously did something wrong. Their son was born blind. But they are afraid of what they have left. They still have some power. They still have some status. They are a part of the community. And the people that have the power are trying to say, this can't be. We can't. Even if we want to believe, man, what does that say about us? That's really what it becomes down to. The Pharisees have already decided that anyone who confesses the Messiah gets thrown out. Because what does that do? That erodes their own authority and their own position in that community. So this story tells us about our own selves. And even the man who is born blind, he doesn't really get into a whole lot of this right away, but eventually just says, seriously? What about me? You are afraid. I'm going to call it actually what it is. I'm going to dare stand up. What happens? He gets thrown out. He gets thrown out of this community that has raised him, that has been there for him, albeit I'm sure in backroom conversations and rumors and in whispers and everything like that. But what the community that he has known is no longer. It breaks apart for him. We see that desire for power, that willingness for power. We had it actually in 1 Samuel. I was telling Lisa on the way over that part of the Lenten reflection journey that I'm on is looking at our passages. And 1 Samuel, right before we get this great passage about David being anointed, we have Saul, a great king, who thinks he knows better than God. And God finally says, enough. The powers of the world are not what I'm going to have. I'm going to show you something different. So I'm going to anoint a shepherd as king. You have the powers of the world trying to maintain the power that be. And the Lord saying, no. Working through the person. I'm interested that Jesus says that this man is born blind so that we may have God's glory revealed. Almost that causality, which I don't like. It's that kind of that puppet master thing where I don't believe God is really saying, this person's going to suffer because we're going to see the good that comes out of that. I don't believe in that. However, Jesus is saying this man is going to see a whole new world. By his eyes being opened, he's not just going to be hearing those whispers, he's going to be seeing the whispers with his own eyes. And he's going to be seeing the Pharisees and the powers that be trying to use him as a pawn in their game against Jesus. And he's like, seriously, dudes? Seriously? This guy has done a great miracle. I'm telling you what it is. You are afraid. Oh, that was the last straw. Out. He reveals in the glory of God our own desire to have power and influence and not to just surrender ourselves in the glory of God. Samuel shows up and assumes that it's going to be one of these powerful men that he's going to anoint in this 1 Samuel passage, Jesse's son. And no, it's the shepherd who's not even present. We think we know, and there is something more. There's something deep that God is trying to do. We think we know strength, we know beauty, we know power, but it is the least of these in which we see God's glory. It is those who call truth to power. That's really what this man born blind does. He calls the truth to the power. He dares question them and says, you guys are afraid, aren't you? You're afraid of losing your power. You're afraid of losing your influence. Because if Jesus is Messiah, then they believe all of the prophets that say a new world is created when Messiah is here. What do you mean? I've got to give up my power, my robes, and my authority. He calls the truth to power. And I love this passage here in Lent, because what does this mean with all that weird confession we have at the beginning? It means that we are kind of trying to say, we know what we should do, but we're comfortable. I'm comfortable with what things are. I'm comfortable with the systems. But this gives us the opportunity to say, what is it really that God is trying to reveal in us? As we worship, Lord, as this man says, yes, I believe. It's after he's already been kicked out. It's not in some condition. He has a conversation separately, but he was the one who went to the Pharisees and said, man, you guys are really kind of screwed up, aren't you? He calls truth to power. One man, a recipient of God's grace. Not just a miracle, of God's grace, just like everyone else is. And that's the beauty of it. There isn't some miracle that needs to happen for us to follow in God's grace and God's path. We have it right for us. Every day when we look around, when we are with the people that we love and that God has loved. We sometimes conflate this different hierarchy of it. But we are called to realize that God has come for us, for all of us. And to strike down the power. To say, when you abuse the power just for your own good, that's not following my commandments. That is abusing others, and abusing all of the goodness that God has created. So may we all be instruments in which we reveal God's glory to others. May we always try, may we always do. May we be that light for what the world may now see as God's love. Amen.